In this tutorial of the complete volume pump strategy, we're going to cover the Conor's RSI settings, your entry settings, the stop loss settings, trailing stops, the take profit settings, and we also have entry filters and exit filters. So let's get right into it. Before we talk about Conor's RSI, I'll come back to that in a second. The entries allow you to delay your entry by any amount of candles or bars. So you can see here we have an entry. If we want to simply delay it by one candle, we can do that. So move one candle over. We click 2. Now you'll see it actually skipped a couple. That's because we had a new entry here, and that's of course based on our settings that we put previously. So we're looking in this specific example for any volume that is 50% above the volume moving average. And anytime that criteria comes up, we have these green backgrounds, which I have set here from the style. You can turn that on or off, but that's why we have green lines, just so you know. So when we moved it to, it skipped over. We had one. We entered here. We skipped one candle. We skipped 2. But 2 led us to a new entry, so this actually reset the candles to this. And now we got 1, 2. That's why we entered over here. So if we go 3, you'll see it move over 1, 4, 5. And now you see how it reset over here with this new entry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's how your enter after candles work. Sometimes you can get better performance down here with your strategies based on moving your candles. So something you can experiment with. Your stop losses, if you want to show those on the screen, you can click on show stop level. And then you have the option to use a couple different stop loss options. You could use, here we have a %. And if you wanted to make it any %, let's say 5% from entry, you'll see now our stop loss is down here. The reason it moved from here to here is because we were actually in a different trade over here that got exited here. So it reset the trades, but anyways, on this trade where we are entered, the stop loss is 5% underneath. You can also do a previous high or low to set your stop loss from if you like, which will go to the previous candle. If you don't want to use a fixed %, and this %, by the way, can be adjusted to the 100th %. Anything you like, you can do. Now, if you don't want to use a fixed %, if you want to use average true range for your stop loss, you can do that. You can say how long of a period you want to look back to give your average for the average true range, and then you just pick a multiple of the average true range for your stop loss, and it'll then appear on the screen. So you would use one or the other. You can't use stop loss and this at the same time. You choose one or the other because there are different ways of measuring stop loss. Now, once you've chose one of these, let's say you have just the fixed %. If you now want to move your stop loss to break even, you can do that after you enter the trade. If you want to this is move your stop loss to break even. This one here, move stop to break. Initial stop at break even is removing it initially. Your move stop to break even will work once the trade has gotten a profit. Then it'll move the stop loss to break even. That's the difference between these two. My apologies for mixing those two up. Now also here you can use a trailing stop if you want to trail by a certain amount. So I'll show you how that works. Let's say we want to trail by 2% once we're in a trade. So you can see here our initial stop loss is 5%, and then we trailed it. Here our initial stop loss is 5%, and now we trailed price by 2%. And you can make this any number you want to the 100th decimal. If you don't want to use a fixed stop loss %, you can also use average true range as your stop loss. And we can show you how that works. You could use any multiple here. This is also adjustable to 100%. So you have the ability to use a fixed trailing stop with a percent or an average true range. Now, we talked about Conor's RSI earlier. You can also use a Conor's RSI initial stop loss, and that will use the Conor's RSI settings as your stop loss. So your Conor's RSI settings are up here. However you want to configure this, you can configure it. Default setting is usually 3, 2, and then 100, but you can experiment around with this. And if you use the initial stop, so now we're in a long only system, right? We have, if we go back to the trade directions, let me find that. It was, to pass it over. Let's see. Oh my gosh, right here. Okay, direction of trades long. So we're in a long only, right by the entries. I thought I had it up there for some reason. So since we're taking longs only, the way we'd use Conor's RSI stop losses for longs is we would only control it with this bottom one closed long level if below. So if it goes below 1 on the Conor's RSI from the settings that we have here, it will stop out the trade. So you can literally adjust this to any number you want, and you'll see how your results show down here. And then you would use this for your shorts. So if you were in a short system and you don't want your shorts to go above 99 on the RSI, the Conor's RSI, you would put that number there. This won't affect your longs, and this bottom one won't affect your shorts. You can also use the Conor's RSI at the same time you use a traditional stop loss or an average true range stop loss, and whichever condition happens first will be what you will get stopped out on. So that's how your stop losses work. We also have take profits built in. Now there's a couple different ways you can take profits. You can use Bollinger Bands or Keltner channels to take profits. And the way that works, I'm going to show it to you on the screen. So we click on take profit, and then I have show take profit indicator. Now I have to adjust the settings for the Bollinger Band. So right now I'm going to set the multiplier, say, to a 10. And we're going to put the Bollinger Band on 20 length, like it is standard. Now the way this works as a take profit is anytime we get in a trade, if the price exits outside the Bollinger Band, we will exit the trade immediately. So let me demonstrate that to you. Let me find some settings that will show that. Okay, let me take the average true range profit off for a second. And we're also going to click on use take profit indicator. So right now we have use take profit on. We're showing it on the screen, and we want to use the take profit indicator. The take profit indicator controls this section here, which is your Bollinger Bands and your Keltner channels. Now, with that being said, here's some examples. We entered a trade here. It exited the Bollinger Band. That was our take profit. We are out. We entered a new trade here. We exited the Bollinger Band here. We exited the trade. So that's how that works for the Bollinger Band, or you could use Keltner channels, whichever one you like. You can experiment them and see what kind of results they give you. But you control their settings, their length, and the multiplier for those through here. You can change the source of the Bollinger Bands or the Keltner channels. You can try different settings here, open, high, low, close, or different high, low, close 2, 3, 4. And you can also change the indicator basis for those, which is the middle line in the Bollinger Band or the Keltner channel. You could change that to a simple moving average or a whole moving average instead of the EMA. So you can experiment with those. We also have, if you take that off, you also have a dynamic, actually the average true range is dynamic. You have a fixed way of taking profit, you can use percentage from entry. So if we click that on, and let me just say we put 10%. So after we enter trade, anytime we get 10% in profit, we want to exit. So here's an example. We entered a trade here, and as soon as we got 10% of the profit, we exited the trade. And that's how that portion works. I'm going to go back to it. So you can adjust to any percent you want, and it's also adjustable to the 100th decimal if you like. Now we also have average true range take profit, which is more dynamic. If you don't want to use a fixed stop or a fixed take entry. And again, you would just choose your multiple here and also the period length of your average true range you want to use. Now you can use all of these at the same time. You can use any one of these take profits all at the same time. Now what's going to happen is whichever condition happens first is what you'll be exited the trade on for a take profit. So you can experiment with those settings and see what works well for you. Again, we have the Conor's RSI on here, but this time it's as a take profit instead of as a stop loss. So if you're in a long and you want to close your long level above, say, 99.9 or 99 even, you can use that as a take profit also. And you can have this with any other setting. And again, whichever one happens first is how you'll be exited. So that is how the take profits work. And again, for if you're in a short system, you would just use this bottom number for the Conor's RSI. Okay, let me take these off. By the way, any take profit you want to use, whether it's Conor's RSI, the average true range, use profit, or even the counter channel, you always have to have a use take profit turned on, and then you can select one of these others. This is the master control and switch. Same thing for the stop loss. If you want to see it on the screen, you always have to have this selected. Okay, now moving on to the entry filters. Any entry you take, if you want to filter it by RSI, stochastics, or EMA, you can do that. So if you want to look for entries that are above or below a certain RSI length and value, you can do that, and you can adjust that to the 100% also. Same thing with stochastics. It's also adjustable to 100%. You would just click these if you actually want to use them. And you can use them together or alone with each other. If you want to use the entry filter, you have to use this as the master control. You click that, and then whichever one of these you want to use, you would click on also. The EMA down here, you can choose above or below. So if you're in a long system and you want to find example trades that are above the 21 EMA, you could do that just how I have it set here. Or you could type in any EMA number you want. 100, for example. Anything above the 100, you can look for those. So that's how this entry filter works. And you have an entry filter 2, which is just an exact copy of the filter 1. Some ideas behind it: you could use one entry filter as a shorter time period, and the settings on these you could use as a higher time period. So for example, we could do, let's say we want to use RSI, we could do a length of 5 here. So anything that's above 20 on a length of 5. And we could also use the second entry filter for RSI that goes back to 100 with, that's above 20. And then you could use these both together like that. Same thing with stochastics or EMA. And then last but not least, we have the exit filters, and they work just like the entry filters, but for exit. So if you want to not exit a trade early and you want to filter that out, say for example you're in a trade and you don't want to enter if it gets a really high RSI, let's see if it goes above 99 on a short time period, you can use that to filter out your long and you will stay in the trade. So sometimes you can get better trades like that. You have 2 exit filters. Again, you could use one as a short-term period and one as a long. and you could use RSI, stochastics, or EMA for that. So that's how this portion of the strategy works. Of course, if you haven't watched other videos, watch those too. You use those in conjunction with any and all the other settings here, whichever ones you like. If you have any questions, just send us a message anytime. Want to make sure you're successful with this and that it works well for you. So thank you for watching and happy trading. Thank you.